Okay, folks, welcome back to Logical Loan Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Today I have once again my very special friend, Chelsey Hernandez, really excellent realtor here in the Phoenix area. We're going to tackle kind of a big question that comes up a lot, that we talk about a lot in the mortgage and real estate world, which is a lot of myths or false beliefs that people have about either buying or selling real estate. So first and foremost, Chelsey, thanks for joining us again.
Yes, thank you so much for having me back. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, we could literally spend like all day tackling these because there's a giant list, but I want to just, sort of dive right in. And I didn't know if you have a preference, if you wanted to start with the common myths about selling your home or buying. I know you're on the real estate side or the realtor side. So yeah, maybe we will start with the selling side. The first one that I have on my list, which seems pretty intuitive, is like, I think it's a bad time to sell because I'm not going to get what I want out of my house. What is your response there?
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty logical right now when you look at prices from a historical perspective. They are so high still, and inventory is still crazy low. I mean, we're less than half of what a normal market should have. And so that means less competition with higher prices. It is still a great time to sell. Not to mention in our market, it's spring. This is the best time of year to sell. So we can get the job done any time of year, but right now is a really good time.
Yeah. And as a mortgage broker nationwide, I'm hearing this everywhere. I mean, I do every once in a while hear this myth that it's a bad time to sell. People are lowballing. I might have to give more concessions. But in a geographic area where you are, there's really, because of the fact that there's low inventory, it's just, I just have to say, like, it seems like nothing is further from the truth. I mean, low inventory combined with the high demand means that you're probably going to get what you want for your house, right? More than likely.
Yes. So right? It's all about pricing the home correctly and making sure you have a good agent who can help you with timing things and marketing the home properly. But yes, you can still get a great price for your home right now.
Yep. The next one is Chelsey. Yeah, I don't want to list right now. I need to hold off to do major repairs.
Yeah, so I think that is a very common myth. We always want to prepare the home in a way that's market specific with things. So different markets will maybe have a different level of expectations for the condition of a home. But there's always going to be a buyer regardless of the condition for the home. And so I can meet with my clients as the home is today. I don't care about the dirty laundry on the floor or dishes in the sink or the paint that needs to be done or partial flooring. I really prefer seeing the home as it is right now because I can make sure that if there is any investment going into the home for those repairs or updates, we're really focusing on things on a timeline that is market specific and with things that they'll actually get a return out of their investment. So it is still important to contact your agent before you make those big decisions before selling.
I think another piece about this too is that sometimes if somebody's considering listing their home and they think that a major repair may be needed, it may be the case that once you have a conversation with a great agent like yourself, you may actually wind up seeing that maybe this is not necessarily needed because there's other things that could happen on the back of the transaction, whether it's seller concessions or something else. It's just that you didn't think about it and you were thinking, well, I'm going to hold off. But then maybe you hold off and you go, gosh, really, I wish I shouldn't have. I should have talked to Chelsey first, right?
Yes, that couldn't be more true. So a lot of it really depends on the buyers we're trying to attract to the property. So if there's anything that we anticipate could cause financing issues and things like that, those things would typically take a little bit more precedence. But yes, it's always good to make sure you're getting in contact with your agent first, because sometimes I have clients that think they need to do these things like changing out light fixtures or hardware on throughout the home, and that would do absolutely nothing for the value in some cases. So it is really important to make sure you're contacting your agent, because we could probably save you a lot of grief when it comes to prepping the home.
And sometimes also maybe like a major repair that you might think that you have to do in your home would cost you so much that it's just prohibitive to even do it. It may just not be worth it. It may just, let's just list it and see what we're going to get in response to it, given maybe your market has, again, low inventory, and you're going to find a buyer who's okay with that because they'll just do the repairs later, right?
Yes, absolutely. So there are a lot of buyers, both financed and cash, who are looking for homes where they could potentially have a sweat equity opportunity and they can put their own investment into the home. And so, yes, some of the things that you're thinking you may need to do, you really don't need to do to the property. And we could actually sell the home for a higher price and more quickly if we tackle things sooner rather than later because of the time in the season or where the market's at. So absolutely.
Yeah. Actually, before we move on to the next one, I think about my house that I'm in right now. And when I purchased this home, my home's an older home. It's a custom home from the 70s. That's exactly the situation. I purchased this home as is. And it could have been the case that the seller could have, for example, repaired or fixed the roof. The roof technically needed a new roof, even though it still passed inspection, but it wasn't required because we just made the proper adjustment to the asking price and we were good to go. He didn't have to do a bunch of repairs, right? So
absolutely. And it's kind of nice too for you as the buyer, because you get that initial financial benefit of not having that repair completed. And then there's that quality control that you have as a buyer where you can have the work done the way that you need it to be done and when you want it to be done.
Yep. How about the next one, which is, I'm getting a divorce, I need to hold off?
Yes, I work with this situation often. So there are a lot of separations in our country. It is what it is. And, you know, I can't tell you how many divorce situations I've worked with where the divorce was not finalized and we proceeded through the sale. So I'd always say, of course, to make sure you're contacting your attorney, because sometimes we have to have those specific approvals or amounts for things decided, but more times than not, we're able to time things and arrange things with the sale of the home before you even go through finalizing things with the divorce, with your division of proceeds and all of that. And in fact, sometimes selling before the divorce is finalized can simplify that entire process significantly. So yes, I would say depending on what point in the process you're at, it is very common to go through a sale before your divorce is final.
I can also tell you as a lender, guys, that there are plenty of situations where I've done a loan and my clients and my borrowers are in the process of a divorce and things were amicable. And as long as they were amicable, we were able to move forward with the transaction and it wasn't a problem. So just know that just because you may be in the process of a divorce now, and maybe you don't have a divorce decree, it's still very possible to move forward with, say, buying or selling a home, right?
Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head there as far as with things being amicable, because it's important to make sure you are working with an experienced professional, because I will have a fiduciary to both parties. And so that's one thing I always commit to my clients in that scenario. Things are going to be transparent, fair, clear, and everybody has to be on the same page at all times. So yes, when it comes to the sale of things and also the purchasing side of things, because depending on your state, here we're community property. And so your spouse prior to divorce actually would have to be able to sign off on you purchasing something without them being on the purchase. So it's important to have everybody on the same page and agreeing with everything, but it happens all the time, and it can actually be a lot better for a lot of people going about it that way.
Yep. Timing wise as well. Okay. Well, this next one really does make me laugh. This is such a big one that we hear all the time. And I know you in the realtor world definitely hear this a lot, but here's the next one. Chelsey, no, I think realtor commissions are too high. I'm going to list this for sale by owner. I think I can make more money on my own.
Yes, that is a good one. We do hear that one all the time. So I know that there's this perception of agents for some people where they've had a bad past experience, and maybe they've had that agent who just sticks a sign in their yard and throws them on the MLS, and they're like, well, I could do that. I could put my own home on MLS with a discounted listing service. I could put a sign in my yard. I can sell my home for more money that way. Well, I'll tell you what, that even among agents, my team is selling homes for 5% more than your average agent. That almost or always covers like even that difference that you're looking at with the commission right there. And so when you look at hiring a professional, we have the ability to make a much larger digital footprint, exposing your homes to thousands, tens of thousands of buyers, as opposed to the few drive-bys you have and people who are looking at MLS. We have targeted online mobile ads. We can utilize priority relationships with the major marketing sites like Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com. We have those premium relationships with them. We have targeted social media ads, and not to mention a huge network of buyers who we are working with. We have over 10,000 registered buyers actively looking for homes. And so we're able to utilize pre-marketing and all kinds of strategies. So really, it's simple math. More buyers means more money for your home. So it makes sense to hire an agent. And what's more important to you? How much money we put in your pocket or how much we charge in fees? Because you will make more money working with an agent.
Yeah, I think time is money too. Like there's sort of a conception of, if I do it myself, I'll make more. But that can really be turned into looking back, hindsight being 2020, and viewing this as a myth, not only because of the things you just mentioned, but there's definitely situations where someone thought that doing FSBO, for sale by owner, was this great idea, but it winds up turning into a nightmare, right? And I'm sure you can touch on that in a second here. But I think about the importance of a great realtor such as yourself, who has really good negotiation skills. A lot of folks think, well, I can just list my home, but they don't realize that there's so much that goes into the process of selling your home and having the right kind of negotiation skills. They look back and they go, you mean I could have gotten more even with a great agent? And it turns out, shoot, you shouldn't have done it yourself, right?
Yes. And I think that that's an important thing to realize, not only on the front end of the transaction, but we've got a whole escrow process of negotiations that occurs once that contract is signed. And keep in mind as a seller that you don't get to cancel that contract once you accept it. And so it's really important that you understand the contract, and we use one that's written by attorneys. And when we go through the process, we're going to have very nuanced things that we have to navigate with: inspections, appraisal, financing, all of the different contingencies. And so having an agent that not only understands the contract, but how to make sure that your best interests are kept at front of mind every single step of the way, that part alone will save you tens of thousands of dollars, because then you can know what is happening that during the transaction when they're asking for repairs. Am I obligated to do this? Is this something that I have to do? We're able to help you because we're selling over 100 homes a year on average. Yes, this is typical for the market. We should work with these things. Or no, these guys are totally crazy. Let's go get another buyer and say no to this all day. So having that experience so crucial when it comes to navigating that, because nobody else is going to tell you how to do it.
Yeah. It's funny, Chelsey, that one of the big things I think about in this space is the ability to comp properties correctly. I can think of situations where a potential person who's going to sell their property and they want to save money. They think they want to save money. So they're just going to list it themselves. They don't know how to properly comp their property. And I've heard of situations where a person improperly comps their house. They put it on the market. And like we were saying earlier, they look back and they go, I could have gotten way more. I just didn't realize that my comping skills were not up to snuff. And so therefore I lost a lot of money because of the missed opportunity, because I wanted to quote unquote save money, but I didn't, right?
Yes, and I have to say, comping a property is an art. In fact, realtors, I don't know if people realize this, get called by appraisers all the time for advice. I get calls from appraisers. I'm not calling the appraisers for help. They're calling me. And the thing is that when you're looking at a property, it's so property specific. There are some houses where you can't look outside of that neighborhood. But if you're using like the typical data that's like, okay, I have to go back 6 months, 1 mile radius, within 10% square footage, you're going to price that property incorrectly, because you're going to have much more accurate information going back maybe a year or so. Also looking at property that's, on acreage or custom homes or things where there aren't any comps in the area for miles. It's really important to make sure that you are working with an expert, because, you're exactly right. If you price a home incorrectly, one of two things can happen. Either you'll leave a ton of money on the table, or you won't sell the house. It'll just collect days on market, and it can just be poison to a listing.
Yeah, that's the other thing I was going to mention is if you don't know what you're doing, you could wind up just sitting, and it just never sells.
Yep. And nobody likes that. It's very painful.
Yeah. Okay. Next one. This is one that I hear all the time. So this is probably both sides of selling and buying. But this next one is the myth of, hey, Chelsey, I'd love to list my house, but I need to fix my credit first, because if I sell my house, I'm not going to be able to buy another house.
That's a good one. So I think that people completely underestimate the resources that are available for credit issues. I get some people who think that they have a credit score that disqualifies them from a home purchase, but they have to remember they're using these apps and tools that aren't necessarily looking at the same things that a lender looks at. And so it's really important to go to somebody like Erin, who, you have access to like over 100, 150 lenders, where they have different programs available that might be some type of a portfolio product or a bank statement product or something unique that can work with whatever their score is like. Or there's maybe some very quick, rapid things they can do to bump that score up more quickly than they would think they could. And what's neat about that with the sale is now we have some equity to work with things. So they could talk to a lender. You could let them know, hey, we've got to bring these balances to this spot, and then you're golden. And we have more than enough equity to do that. And so you work with the agent on developing a plan with that, where we can look at a fairly seamless transition from one home to another, working with the lender. So it is a team effort with that, but you should always contact your agent if you think that that's what's stopping you from proceeding.
Yeah, I should say, guys, if you're watching this right now and you're thinking about buying or selling, but you feel like your credit is standing in the way, I think you should really look in the description box below and contact Chelsey or myself. The reason I say this is so important because this myth is something I've heard over and over again, where somebody has maybe been told they've got bad counsel from another party, maybe another realtor, maybe a friend, a family member, maybe another loan officer that tells them, no, you can't get a loan until you have a 620 score. That's not true. I'm a lender. As Chelsey just said, I'm a broker, so I work with 160 lenders. But more importantly for you guys is that I have tools and resources with my company that I pull credit with that I can pay out of my pocket to help you fix your credit faster than you would think. There's things called wayfinders. There's a tool that's called the What If Simulator. There's something called a rapid rescore. There's all sorts of tools that we can use as brokers and lenders that you don't know about necessarily. Some of them are new. Some of them have been around a long time, but it's very easy today in today's world of fast information to get bad information. And so you thought you couldn't list your home because you thought you couldn't get a new one. But in reality, you just had one phone call with myself or Chelsey and you go, oh my gosh, wait a minute. That person at that other place, they just didn't know what they were talking about, right?
Exactly. Yep. I completely agree. Yeah. It's just, if you're told that you can't do something when it comes to real estate, I think that you always need to question that, because it really just depends on experience. And I mean, no fault to that person who told you, they just may not know and may not have that information. But that's why it's important to always get a second opinion and make sure you're talking to an expert with a lot of experience.
Yep. This next one, I can't talk to you very much. This is definitely a realtor question, but I found this to be, this one would seem intuitive for me as a homeowner, and for you at first, maybe if you don't know very much, it might seem intuitive. But this next one says, hey, Chelsey, I want to list my home for sale, but I want to list it. I believe that I should list it for the highest selling price and then only come down if I don't get the offer price that I want. What say you?
Oh, yes. It's pain to my heart hearing that, especially right now. So, it's kind of, I can see the logic behind that. And I see how people arrive at this conclusion where they don't want to miss out on that higher number. But in all reality, what's normally going to happen in that situation is that you're going to have to reduce to get to that buying pool, that where the demand actually exists. And then by the time you've made it there, now you have stigmatized your listing with these high days on market. Buyers are thinking they can get an even better deal. I don't care if the home's priced correctly now. I'm going to come in $30,000, $40,000 under because that's what it's worth it to me now. And value is always going to be determined by what a buyer is willing to pay. And so make sure you're working with an agent who, again, knows how to comp the property correctly and is setting those right expectations for what's happening in that neighborhood and in that area and what type of activity you need to be getting to justify the price that you're at. Because if you're not getting that, then quick reductions are definitely necessary. But especially in our market today, we do not want to overprice a listing. You'll actually sell your home for less money doing it that way.
Yeah. I talk about intuition here because this is something that I think many realtors who are getting listings now, they hear from sellers, right? I want to sell my home. I've lived here for 10 years. I'm looking online on Zillow and I think my house is worth this. And the reality is since they haven't sold a home in a long time, and maybe they haven't dealt with a very skilled realtor who's a pro, such as yourself, they think it just makes sense. Like, if I sell my car online or if I sell something in a garage sale, whatever, same as my home, it just makes sense. I'll just list it super high and then see if it comes down, right? Because we do that on Craigslist or OfferUp or whatever, eBay or something. But that's a total myth. You have to talk to somebody who is a pro, who knows how to list your home so you can, similar to a magnet, you can pull in and attract the right kind of buyers, right? So maybe speak to that, right?
Absolutely. Yes. So when you price a home correctly, you are reaching the maximum buying pool that is there for that house. And it's really important that you're exposing it to all of those people, because if you think about it, those people are trying to find a house now. So when you're sitting there over at this price category, they're not even seeing your home. They're looking at all of these other options. And so you're losing those buyers while you're up here waiting to come back down here. And so it is very important to make sure that you're in line with where things are selling. And it is a very market specific strategy. So right now, for example, with the way that our market is, it's very important to not only be looking at closed sales, but also our competition that's on the market. What are the things that are on the market that are also active, and how many days have they been sitting there? And also the pending competition, what is moving and why is that moving and those other houses aren't moving? Compared to, when our market was crazy hot, we were pricing homes differently. We would be looking at the high end of everything and going there. But even then, you could have priced a home too high. So overpricing a home is never a good idea, regardless of the market. But the definition of pricing a home too high does change depending on what market we're in.
Yeah. This is such a key point. There's a story I'm going to tell you guys really quick that this comes to mind about this specific, this myth. And I know, you'll get it when you hear the story, because it speaks to exactly what you're saying. So I have a client of mine that I've been working with her for about 8 months now. Lovely family. And they've, in a similar situation, they've lived in their home for about 10 years, and they hired this realtor. They're in a different state, and the realtor was referred by a friend. Now, the realtor is a pro realtor. He's somebody who has 5-star rating. He does very well in his state, and he's a really, really good realtor. I've talked to him. I vetted him myself, and I'm a lender, but I'm also a buyer and a real estate investor. So my client, she called this realtor, and the realtor said, "Hey, I've comped your property, and I think that this is where we should list it, at this specific price." She said, "No, I disagree. I think we need to list it way up here," right? Let's say she wanted to list it at like 900. And in reality, the realtor that she was speaking to, he said, "No, 900 is way too high. It won't sell. You won't get anything there. We need to list it at, let's say, 798. Ooh. Well, come to find out, months and months go by, right? And I had done the comping because I have taught myself and learned from other people how to comp properties. And I could look in this situation as I did months ago, and I said, "No, I think that realtor's right. I think this is where the price is." But she persisted. Well, guess what? Eventually, she and her husband got upset, and they were unhappy with this realtor. So she fired that realtor, got another realtor who told her the same thing. "This is too high. We need to list a property here at, let's say, 798. Well, sure enough, just recently, within the past couple of weeks, they finally accepted a contract at 798. So, wow. This is what happens when you have a pro realtor who tells you, "Hey, let's not take the strategy of going really high and then coming down. Let's just list it where we think we should," right? So, yeah, speaks exactly to what you said, right?
Yeah, I mean, and not to mention all of the pain and suffering that you have to go through in that process. It's just not necessary.
Yeah, there was a lot of heartache. We're not getting any listings. We're having showings. Nobody's showing up. We just don't understand. And just like you said, the moment they listened and they brought that price down, they didn't quite bring it down to where they should have. But once they really went down where that buyer pool would be, that's when they started getting the bites, right? Yep. So, yep. Yeah. Myth busted. Okay. Okay, a couple more on the seller side. So this next one also really has to do with showing the house. So, and I've never heard this myself, but maybe you've heard this one pertaining to curb appeal. "Hey, Chelsey, I want to list my house, but I don't want to do anything to the front or whatever. I don't think curb appeal matters. when they see the inside, they'll be blown away and will sell quickly. What say you?
Yeah, so that's a tricky one because, I can't tell you how many contracts I've actually gotten from drive-bys, and we put like a text writer on there so they can actually contact us quickly for those. And the thing is that the front of your house does matter. Now, keep in mind, we don't have to go crazy. Same thing when we were talking about prepping the home for updates and repairs and things like that. There can be very simple things that we can do to, maybe you have some type of banner up that would push an entire demographic of people away. Or maybe it just rained and there are weeds everywhere. The first thing a buyer is going to think when they pull up to that property is, oh, I'm not going to want to take care of that. Immediate maintenance and things like that. So there can just be very simple things that we do to make the front of the property shine. Now, that's not always my choice necessarily for the feature photo when we're advertising it online. It kind of depends on the property. It's a very property specific thing. Sometimes, the pool is really what's shining, or the kitchen, or things like that. And that's where we feature the home. But everybody's always going to look at the front of the house, and they are going to drive by the house. And if that's something that you've got some funky color happening or some things like that, just make sure you're getting in contact with your agent. I had a property that was a pink house, and the inside was very nice, move-in ready. They had made some updates over the years, but they were asking me if we just need to do one thing to get the home ready. I said, paint your house. They painted their house, and that was a property. I had over 30 offers on the property. It shined. That one little change when you drove by, it was now the cutest house on the street because that was an older neighborhood. They had some weird colors going on in there, and we made it look modern and sharp, and everybody wanted that house. So I think that the curb appeal actually does matter.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing the first thing that comes to my mind in this kind of situation is that as much as you may or may not want to think about this when you're selling your home, once you put your house on the market, that is like a mini business, and the product is your home. Now, yes, it's your home. You've lived in it for a long time. You've made many memories there, but keep in mind that the people that are looking at your home to buy, they haven't. They haven't made any memories there. They have no emotional connection to this house yet. And what they're looking at is they're looking at a sea, an ocean of properties to potentially buy, and you want to make your house stick out. So when I hear this idea, well, curb appeal doesn't matter. It's almost like saying, hey, think about my car. Well, curb appeal doesn't matter to my car, so I'm just not going to wash it. That probably doesn't make very much sense, right? Yeah.
Right. And sometimes it is something, in fact, many or most times it's something as simple as like washing your car, like just do your landscaping, hose off the dirt that's collected because we have so much dust here in our area. And it can age your house like a decade when it's caked with all of that dirt and things like that. So just very simple things that are going to take you a Saturday afternoon, and then you'll sell your home for tens of thousands of dollars more because it looks sharp.
Yeah. I mean, a picture's worth 1,000 words. What if you just, I've seen somebody who all they did was power wash their house. And all of a sudden the pictures just pop from a power wash. You're like, I mean, what did that take? Like an afternoon to power wash your house with a power washer?
Never underestimate cleaning. Every single one of my properties, I recommend a nice cleanup on the exterior as well as the interior, because that's the last thing that you want a buyer paying attention to when they walk through your home. And it gets specific, guys. People are going to notice the dust on your fan blades, on your baseboards, and then they'll think, or on the vents, the dust collects there. And they'll think, oh, they must not maintain their home. and the home is immediately worth less in their mind when you could have spent a couple $100 on a professional cleaner coming through and doing all of that for you in 1 or 2 hours. And then it's perfect. So yes, it is a product that you're selling when you are a seller, and you got to make sure that it's sharp.
Yep. 100%. Okay. So let's see. The last one on my list in terms of selling, unless you have another one, is I don't have time right now because I need to make sure that I'm always available to show the property at all times. Let's see.
Oh my, yes. So I love it if you're not available or home, because it makes it so easy for me to show the property for you. So we actually arrange all of the showings digitally. It's a very secure process. All of the agents who come through are tracked, licensed, fingerprinted, scheduled. And so we have a total record of everybody that's going in and out of the home. The home is secured during and after each showing. So yes, it's great if you're not here. And I've worked with many clients who are out of state, and you don't need to be here for anything. You can do all of your signatures remotely. And likewise, if it's the other way around and you are always home and have a ton of kids and pets and things like that, we can get really creative with how we schedule showings and get you guys out of the door with enough notice so that we're not interfering with buyers getting into the home, but we're also not ruining your life. So there's a lot of very creative ways we can work around that as well. Like when the market was crazy, I'd pretty much just have my sellers leave town the first weekend, and they'd go on a little camping trip while I took care of the house for a weekend, and then we'd get it sold. So there's always a solution.
100%. I think in this respect, I have to say, like, it comes back to a professional and why in the first place you're hiring a great realtor to represent you. A lot of folks think, well, I've got to be there all the time because it's just my responsibility. I have to sell this home. Well, no, it's not really you who's selling the home. It's your realtor's job. That's what you're paying them for. They're the ones who are responsible to show the home, to get it prepared, to help work with you. You don't have to be there all the time because guess what? Chelsey is going to be the one who kicks butt and gets your home in front of the right people and is able to get that contract where you don't have to do that. And sometimes there's even cases where you feel like you have to be there. And in reality, you being there can actually hurt the process. So maybe speak to that.
I'm so glad that you said that. Yes. Please leave the house for a showing. So a buyer does not feel comfortable going through and looking at the closet space or how the kitchen cupboards open and close, or they feel like they have to kind of tiptoe around you when you're home. It's very uncomfortable. They feel like they can't speak openly to each other and to their agent. And that processing that a buyer goes through is what makes the magic happen. And so they need to be in that space without you there because they're picturing their lives there. They don't want to see who's living in there right now. That's why we depersonalize the space and make it as plain and simple as we possibly can so they can picture their things in the home. So yes, if I have had clients who wanted to stay for showings and those types of things, but I promise you the home will not sell as quickly. It won't sell for as much money. Even if you just step outside, go into your car and park across the street while the showing is happening, just don't be in the house.
Yep. You don't want to create any uncomfortable anxiety with somebody who's possibly looking to buy your home.
Right. And I mean, again, it's very secure. They're not in the home alone. They're with a licensed professional whose name is tied to that entire showing. So there's recourse. It's a very secure process with all of that. So.
Yep. Okay. So let's move now to the buying side.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of these, at least 10, right? Now, the first one we kind of touched on, of course, which is I can't get approved because I have bad credit. I feel like we've said probably enough about this, so I'll probably skip to number 2. If you guys have questions about credit, again, look in the description box below. All of Chelsey's contact information will be there. All of mine will be there. If you want to talk credit, if you want to, go over your scenario, I don't even need to pull your credit. I can just look at what you got on your credit report. You can pull it yourself for free from annualcreditreport.com and send me a copy of it, and I'll look at it with you and see what we're talking about. Or I can just pay to do a soft pull credit for you, and I can take a look at that too. Or if you want to call Chelsey and talk about it, either one. I think we've sort of beaten that horse, but you don't necessarily have to have phenomenal credit in order to get pre-approved for a loan. So we'll bump over that one. The next one, though, is actually pretty intuitive. It sounds correct on its surface, but it says, hey, I'm not ready to buy a home yet because I don't have money, right, to buy a home. So firstly, I'm going to bounce these off you and then I'll comment. But what is your thoughts if you are talking to somebody and they say, I'm not ready because I don't feel like I have money or enough money to buy a home?
Well, first I find out exactly how much we're talking about, because some people call no money $5,000 or $10,000. And for some people, no money means zero. So it does depend on what that real number is. Now, there are awesome down payment assistance programs, and some programs, I know there's one, you probably know about it better, that just came out that it covers down payment and closing costs. So depending on the buyer, those can be great programs that help with a lot of those upfront costs. And it depends on the buyer, and the lender can help you know whether or not that's the right program for you, because it is structured differently than programs where you do make your own down payment. I will say, though, as a caveat here, from the agent side of things, that even with these no money with the loan side of things with the home, we do need a little bit to get started for your upfront costs, even if we have a zero down program. So we do still need money for your earnest money deposit, which ironically is applied towards your down payment and closing costs.
Yep.
And then we also need money set aside for inspections and for the appraisal. And sometimes I know lenders have programs with the appraisal. Oftentimes I see that it's still an upfront cost and it can be reimbursed depending on the program. But you still need to have those upfront funds. And I will say that inspections in particular isn't something that you want to be too cheap with. I have access to various inspectors where we can help with keeping those costs down for you, just because of our relationships with them. I can help our clients get a free foundation inspection, roof bid, things like that, just because of our networking and relationships. But you are going to want to have some money set aside with that. So depending on what size and type of property you're looking at would be what my recommendations would be for having some of those upfront costs. But we can keep those costs very minimal depending on what you qualify for with the lender.
Yep. Yeah, I love it. Of course, you hit on the head there. The first thing that comes to my mind in terms of this is definitely down payment assistance programs. Guys, it doesn't matter what part of the country you're living in, more than likely there's a down payment assistance program. And as long as you qualify for it, then the amount of money that you have to come to the closing with is a lot less than you thought. That's the first thing. The second thing that I want to say here is something called seller concessions. And this has happened so much in the past, let's say 6 months, where you have somebody, a seller, who's trying to sell their home. Maybe they can't sell it. It's been on the market for 90 days or something. Well, if that seller is willing to give you a sizable amount of concession, or what is effectively free money, right? You now have to bring a lot less money to the closing. There's been situations where I just had a loan recently closed where my client in North Carolina, she was able to come to the closing table with all of $2,300 because of her seller concessions that she got from, and this was a brand new build. So if you're thinking to yourself, well, I need to save 10, 20, 30,000, nothing could be further from the truth. Don't make this assumption. Call Chelsey, call me, and we can take a look at your area where you live and what your scenario is. And we can tell you yes or no, we can do this depending upon what programs are available, right?
Absolutely. Yep. I love that you brought that up. And it's always something I explain to my clients because it is so neighborhood specific and property specific. But we are getting seller concessions right now in our current market. And so that is a way we can really significantly offset those costs. Again, depending on the property and how competitive things are for that area. But leave it up to your agent because yes, that's one of my favorite ways to save my clients money because like you said, it's free. It's not something they are paying interest on or anything like that. It's just something they don't ever have to pay.
Yep. Okay. This next one is definitely, I feel like, for millennials and those people born after. So this is something that I actually used to believe myself was a myth. And that is, hey, Chelsey, I'm renting right now. I don't want to stop renting because home ownership means less freedom. What say you?
Wow, I don't think anything could be further from the truth. So, I mean, if you just do some simple math right now, especially with how high rates are, rents are right now, like, oh my goodness, I see some of the rents in this area, like there's these 1-2 bedroom apartments that are going for like $2,500, $3,000 a month. And I'm just thinking, oh my goodness, are these people insane? Like we can get you into a home that you actually own. And so if you think about it, even if we were in a flat market, okay, where there's no appreciation, which has happened once, by the way, in 73 years, like in the last 73 years, there's only been 7 of those years where the market wasn't appreciating. That's pretty incredible data. And so you have appreciation to go into your home, in addition to the fact that a portion of your mortgage payment is going into that savings account. And so it's this high interest savings account basically for your future. Not to mention, then you can really get crazy with home ownership and you could do things like I think you've talked about in another video, like house hacking, where you basically have roommates or you're in a multifamily and you lease out the other unit. Or you can even, what's very exciting, you could turn your primary residence into a rental property. Then you've got this sweet rate on it that you got as an owner occupant with the loan, and then go buy a new primary residence and you can build your rental portfolio that way. So there's just, I think that if you're asking for freedom, home ownership is how you get to financial freedom.
Yeah, guys, let me just tell you a fast story. I mean, this is something that happened to me, that I was able to help somebody just about 6 months ago, roughly. And today's the 24th of March, 2023. So approximately 6 months ago, I got one of my clients pre-approved. He was living in California. I met him on Facebook. We just started chatting. And he was looking to rent. He was moving from California to here in Arizona. And he said, I can afford, about $2,200 per month, maybe $2,300 in rent. And I said, how much are you paying currently? He said about $2,200. Well, fast forward about 2 or 3 months later, after I began talking to him, I got him pre-approved. I linked him up with a realtor friend of mine, and I was able to get him a mortgage of $1,679 on his property. So he was saving a dramatic amount just by stopping renting and moving. Okay. Now, a side tangent here is that the way that I actually met Chelsey was because one of the houses that he put an offer on was a house that she had listed. Okay. But, but this myth that like, it's going to take away your freedom, okay, by owning a property, it's just not true. And I think maybe this idea is spread by landlords because they want you to continue renting so they can continue to make money, which I get it. I believe in real estate investing too, but there's so many benefits, right, to owning real estate. And the notion that you're going to lose freedom is it's just so not true in almost every sense of the word, right?
I completely agree. Yeah. And I feel passionate about the greater Phoenix market too, just because historically, I mean, we're such an investable market. People love moving here. People love having vacation homes here. And so that gives you even more freedom because it doesn't matter how long you plan on staying here necessarily, because regardless of where you live in the country, this is a great market to invest in. And that's why we have so much big money investors here too. So.
Yep. Well, this next one is sort of related to the idea of freedom, right? This next one has to do with just the cost of maintenance, right? Because I think there's some people that maybe they're a first-time home buyer, or maybe they've thought about it and they're afraid of this, but it has to do with the cost of repairs. Hey, Chelsey, I'm renting now and it's easy for me. I just pay my rent. I don't have to repair the house. I don't want to buy a house because the cost of repairs could be too much and then I could be really in trouble.
So there's a couple of different ways I would want to respond to that. So on the front end of things, you can work with a great agent to help you find a home that's in a condition that's something that you feel prepared to work with. Not to mention, we could look at getting the seller to get the home in the condition that it needs to be during that inspection period once we learn more about the home so that you feel like it's going to be comfortable. But I'm going to add something additional that a lot of my first-time home buyers and even experienced home buyers utilize to really help with offsetting some of those intimidating costs. And that would be looking at getting a home warranty plan. Home warranty plans are fairly inexpensive and can cover a lot of the most expensive items in your home that can break down. So for example, your air conditioning unit. I'd say that's probably the biggest deal in Phoenix because we get up to like 120 degrees here in the summer and it's a health hazard. And so a cool thing about a home warranty plan is if something goes wrong with one of those major appliances, you're paying like a $75 service fee for them to come and repair or replace the item instead of thousands of dollars. Now, granted, you're working with a form of like an insurance company, so it's not as quick as if you just like fixed it with throwing cash at it, but it's a way to really help alleviate those costs, even if it's just like for your first year while you're trying to catch up on your finances after buying the home. You just dumped a bunch of your savings into your property for, maybe you decided to make a large down payment or things like that. So having that home warranty plan can really help, but you'll kind of know what you're getting into by the time you accept the property with inspections. And so that's a nice thing about it too, is that there's really not anything in most cases that's a terrible surprise. I mean, things do happen, but that's why a home warranty can be kind of a security blanket.
Yep. The other thing, guys, that I want to talk to you about is a term that we use in real estate investing. It's called a turnkey property. Okay. A turnkey property is a property that's already been fixed up. As Chelsey alluded to just a moment ago, when you buy a property, you don't necessarily need to buy a fixer-upper. As a matter of fact, for most people, and I definitely want to bounce this off you, Chelsey, I personally think that buying a house that's a fixer-upper, it might not be the best option for you if you're a first-time home buyer. It might be better to buy something it's fixed up. It doesn't need a lot of work. It's got all the stuff ready. It's basically just move-in ready so that when you move in, maybe you do have a home warranty, but you don't even need to use it because all the stuff has already been there. It's been upgraded. You've got, as you say, maybe it's, you've got a new heating system, new air conditioning, new roof, and so forth and so on, so that the likelihood that you're going to have to come out of pocket is very low, right?
Yes, and there are turnkey properties available, as well as looking at homes maybe that are newer and less likely to have some of those maintenance concerns. Because here, after about 20 years of a roof or an air conditioning unit, we all kind of raise an eyebrow and wonder how much longer it's got. And so age is another thing we can focus on with a home that can help with alleviating those concerns. But yeah, with first-time home buyers, it's all about education. I think it really just depends on how handy they are, because I have worked with some first-time home buyers who were like contractors, and that was a really exciting thing for them. But if you're just your average Joe and this is all news to you, then it might be a little bit easier for you to get into something that's ready to go.
Yep. Good stuff. Okay, well, we're just about up in the hour. We got about 5 minutes left, so I want to catch like 2 or 3 of these. These are some pretty big ones here. So this next one, Chelsey, I want to buy, but in my area, prices are just too high. I feel like I need to wait until there's a crash.
Yes. So, my first question for somebody is always, when they have that concern, how long are you planning on living in the property for? And the thing is if you're planning on living in the property as long as your average person typically does, at least 5 years, then you're not really susceptible to the market shifts that could potentially occur. And so by that point, the market has usually gone back up again if it's going down, and you're a little bit safer. And you have 5 years of mortgage payments to improve your equity position. There's just a lot more security with that type of a thing. But I will say that also more years than not, the market has appreciated historically. And so I think the thing that makes our market so investable is that it does go up and down. And so there's a lot of opportunity with that, with buying in real estate. And so it's kind of like that whole strategy with cost averages, I think that working with the different points in the market is always going to give you opportunity. So, and the reality of the situation is that nobody has a crystal ball. And so we've already experienced a slight dip in our market, but rates have gone back down a little bit and inventory is very low. And if rates get any lower, that could turn things into a crazy market here again, where prices escalate very quickly. So just be cautious with listening to the news and the media, and they usually get the information a little bit late. So I would say make sure you're talking to your agent and getting more accurate information about where things actually are right now.
Another thing, guys, that it pertains to price is, and we're going to talk about this in a second in terms of rates, but in terms of this notion, hey, I don't want to buy because prices are too high, or I think there's going to be a crash. Well, if you've seen any of my other videos, there's really not any evidence there's going to be some massive crash. We just don't have the inventory. We don't have the bad loans that were given, none of that stuff. And Chelsey's 100% right. Historically in America, real estate goes up. The other piece about this, though, is in terms of price. Now, a lot of folks, when you're out there looking to get a loan for a home, you're looking in terms of what your monthly payment is going to be, right? That's super important. Even though it's true that we can't necessarily control what interest rates are, right? We can definitely control our offer price. So Chelsey, maybe speak to that, right? Somebody who's concerned about the price of the home or what their monthly payment's going to be, what can we do in these areas to make things more affordable for them? Let's say in their market, whatever market they're in.
So a lot of it depends on the type of buyer, but for generally speaking, for any buyer who is a financed buyer, monthly payment is typically a huge priority. And if monthly payment is a big priority, typically our negotiations are going to go a lot further when we get some type of a credit or concession from the seller, because that can be applied towards things like a rate buy down. And the interest rate can drive a pretty significant impact on what that translates into as far as a monthly payment goes, compared to if we bring the purchase price down, that same amount, dollar for dollar, the money can go so much further with the rate buy downs as far as what that means for monthly payment. So I always make sure that I'm working as a team with my buyer and with the lender like you, so that we have a very clear picture on when I'm negotiating this offer for my buyer, do we want to come down on price, or do we want to get them to their maximum concessions, which can be really high for some loan products. I know some only will go up to like 2%, but some can go up to like 6%. I've even seen 9%. And so if you have a motivated seller, then you can try to get that on the higher end with things, and it'll be like you are back in the days with like the crazy interest rates that we once had.
Yep, I love that too. Thanks for bringing it up. Guys, again, bringing back the idea of seller concessions and how this relates to affordability, your monthly payment, right? If prices are high, you can definitely make lower offers. There's things you can do in your market. But the other thing you can do with the seller concession is use that money, which is again, effectively free money from your seller, to make it so that your payment's lower. Because once your interest rate is bought down, let's say 1 or 2 points, your principal, interest, tax, insurance, which is your monthly mortgage payment, now that's going to be lower. It's going to be more affordable for you, right? And so now you're going from, let's say, renting at one place to maybe paying less than you currently are with your new mortgage payment, regardless of what the purchase price is within reason, right?
Yep. And that's why it's important to make sure you're working with an expert, because if you're just focusing on one thing, you could be leaving a whole lot of money on the table. So you got to make sure that all of the pieces hit.
Well, there's so many other ones we could hit here. We kind of touched on interest rates. Our last one was interest rates are too high. Guys, I just want to say, as a lender, and you probably know this already, we can't control the interest rates, but there's many other pieces that we can control. And I will say one thing in conversations I'm having with my clients right now is that interest rates are cyclical. They're non-controllable, but also I, as a lender, if I'm working with you on your loan, I'm going to watch those interest rates very closely. And the moment that those interest rates drop by a significant amount, I'm going to call you to refinance. So now your payment goes down. And we know historically in the United States of America, interest rates are sort of like a roller coaster. So if that's the case, then we just don't have to worry too much. What we want to worry about is this the right scenario for your goals? And if we can get to your goals, then somebody like a team like myself and Chelsey can help you to get to that next step in your life, right? And make things better for you financially, right? Yeah,
exactly. We're here for you.
So Chelsey, where can people find you?
Any way works. So phone is probably preferred, or text, but you can also email me or visit my websites and start looking at houses. And I'm pretty quick. I'll get in touch with you right away. So.
Yep. We're both available 7 days a week. Guys, make sure you check out the description box below for all of Chelsey's information. And thanks for watching.
Thanks.